Experts say there's reason to believe that what we're seeing in Gaza is famine.
It's already a catastrophe.
I've seen devastation here like I've not seen in my 2 decades with the United Nations.
Allah! For God's sake, we need to eat! Our children are dying of hunger!
We are full of diseases from this water. Everyone is seeing this. Why are they ignoring us? Aren't we human beings?
We are here to tell the world that we are hungry.
You have got people constantly saying to me in English and Arabic, we need food, water, medicine and food. Why are they telling me that? They're telling me that because they cannot possibly imagine that the world knows. If the world knew what they were going through, how would this possibly be happening?
According to the UN, before this recent fighting, the number of children under the age of 5 in Northern Gaza that were suffering from severe malnutrition was about 1 in 100. By February, experts say that number was closer to 1 in 6, and in March have projected that number to be as high as about 1 in 3.
People are foregoing meals to feed their children. But what are they feeding their children? Animal feed. What water are they offering them? Dirty water. And that makes their children more sick. So imagine you're a parent, and what your choices are: watch your child waste away, or feed them something you know is killing them.
The situation has become so catastrophic that the UN's top court says Palestinians in Gaza are no longer only facing a risk of famine, but that famine is now setting in. That statement has been making headlines around the world. But what does it actually mean? And why is the use of the term famine such a big deal? Famine is more than just a word used to describe mass starvation. There's actually a specific set of criteria that need to be met for a famine to be officially declared. So let's break down what famine actually is, just how devastating famine can be, what causes famine, and what needs to be done to stop it. 20 years ago, the United Nations created the IPC as a way to keep track of food security levels of countries around the world. There are 5 different phases, with famine being the most extreme. Famine occurs when at least 20% of a population face extreme food shortages, and 30% or more of a population's children are acutely malnourished, which is the most extreme and visible form of starvation. It's detected by measuring things like a child's weight, their arm size, and looking for signs of unhealthy swelling. Currently, there are multiple countries facing emergency conditions and are at risk of famine, but an actual declaration of famine is really rare. There have only been 2 officially recorded since the IPC came into effect. But that doesn't mean that world hunger doesn't really exist anymore. Something that's very important for people to understand is that things don't start getting bad when a famine is declared. Anything from phase 3 onwards is considered a crisis that requires urgent action. So, just how devastating can a famine be to a population?
About 2/3 of those who starve, who perish, are children under 5. When a population of about 1 million people begins to pass that threshold, we would expect 200 children to die every day.
Doctors in Gaza say they're overwhelmed and are already seeing children dying of starvation.
We receive at least 300 to 400 children daily at the reception and emergency department.
When I go to hospitals, I see babies who are paper thin, mothers crouched over in absolute tears.
As people get more and more desperate, they're often forced from their homes in search of food. And populations scrambling over the few scraps of food remaining can lead to chaos.
People are so desperate that they risk their lives in getting any food to support their children, to support themselves.
They'll climb on top of the aid truck, they'll open up the box, and while they're on top of the truck and the truck is moving, you'll see them open to start eating. I mean, that's how desperate the situation has become.
The experience of famine is very traumatic. It's also very humiliating. The sense of indignity, of shame, of scrabbling around in the dust to get grains of food.
I'm gathering flour in order for us to eat. We came here and we didn't take flour, so we're picking flour from the ground.
What has this child done to suffer from hunger? We are eating plants. We started eating pigeon food, donkey food. We are like the animals.
A big part of what makes famine so devastating is the fact that starvation isn't the only thing that a population needs to worry about.
Not everybody who dies in a famine dies of starvation.
Malnutrition leads to weakened immune systems, and for kids in particular, it makes them a lot more likely to die from common diseases. Diseases that normally wouldn't cause them many problems. Malnutrition can cause irreversible damage, even to those who survive it.
This affects brain development, it affects physical development, it affects people's ability to learn.
There's also the financial impact. Famine perpetuates poverty and instability, and can completely destabilise an entire population for generations. So, what actually causes a hunger crisis to get so bad that it becomes a famine? The simple answer is us.
The most important thing that the public needs to understand is that all famines are man-made.
Natural disasters, of course, like floods and droughts, still have a massive impact, and climate change has made these disasters more intense and frequent. But thanks to improvements in technology over the past century, experts say that these disasters alone are no longer enough to cause famine.
We should no longer have the case of food is not available. So globally, we produce more food than we need, so we have the food.
Instead, they say the biggest drivers of catastrophic hunger events are conflict and political inaction. When it comes to Gaza, there are a number of different factors. The first is that Gaza is almost completely reliant on outside food. And right now, experts say nowhere near enough food or aid is being let into Gaza.
Outrageous how many life-saving supplies are so desperately close to those who need them.
Then there's the simple fact that most Gazans can't leave.
I don't recall another war where people cannot get out of the line of fire. The idea that nowhere is safe here is not a cliche. I don't feel safe here. No one in their right mind feels safe here. The bombardment here is relentless.
And this constant bombardment is what many experts say is one of the biggest drivers behind the devastation that we're seeing right now.
When you have a bombardment like this that is devastating not just lives, but services like water and sanitation, and then you bring in bad nutrition, disease and malnutrition are a perfect storm.
All of this brings us to the final question. How do we stop famine? When it comes to Gaza, the first thing that's needed is food and clean water. Unlike other catastrophic food situations around the world right now, many experts and humanitarian groups say much of the food and aid that Gazans need is available and waiting at the border, but it's not getting through fast enough. Now, Israel has repeatedly said that it isn't blocking aid from flowing into Gaza, and that it needs to control the traffic going in and out of the region to protect the safety of the Israeli people. But the UN says it needs to do more to allow aid to reach people safely and quickly. This brings us to what many experts say is the most important thing that's needed to stop famine, and that is a ceasefire.
There will be no sustainable humanitarian solution with an ongoing war as bloody as this.
What does a ceasefire do? Gets the hostages home. A ceasefire also, of course, enables us to hopefully flood the Gaza Strip with aid, have a ceasefire, open additional crossings.
Humanitarian aid organisations and experts say that delivering food and aid alone isn't enough, because you can't treat widespread malnutrition when your healthcare system is already overwhelmed because of intense, brutal fighting.
Only 1/3 of hospitals are partially functioning. 1/3 are partially functioning. The healthcare system is on its knees because of the hundreds of attacks on healthcare facilities, ambulances, healthcare workers. So we have to fall back as much pressure as we can on a humanitarian ceasefire that involves hostages going home and giving people a chance just finally to breathe.